So I just was talking about that I'm going to just throw you some example of it. I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but you can give permissions and allow permissions or revoke permissions of the users. So as you can see, the database the database tab has this database. Apart from my database tab, I have security as well. So if I expand security, and under security, I can see this is my user that I have given the permission by default because I am the one who is currently logged into this. Let me see if I can create a new user here with the Windows authentication. With Windows authentication means I'm actually creating a new user here, and that will be the user that can log into this Windows system as well. And the database, I want to give him the permission, and the default language is this. Leave it at that. I can use SQL Server authentication, but remember this server is based on the Windows authentication. So that is why this user will not have SQL Server authentication. I can try it, but I have not enabled the mixed mode authentication when I was installing this. I can also just search the users that are already created on this system already on the Windows platform, so I can check their names and I can add that guy here. So let me add myself actually instead of test user. And this is the account that I'm not using too much on the system, but I'm using the account user on the system. And if I'll go ahead and create it, yes, now the account is created with Kashan's Khan credential. But keep in mind, let's see if I connect Object Explorer. I'm not able to log in until I log out as as this user and log in as K Khan, because each account is assigned with the Windows login, Windows authentication. So I will not be able to log in that way. Let me see if I can run it as SSMS. And if I say right click on it and go open this file location first. I'm just trying one thing out. Let's see if I can do it. One idea just popped up in my head, so I just wanted to try out. Run as a different user. Okay, so this time I'm going to run SSMS as a different user. It is asking me which user you want to run it as, so I'll just say Kashan. I don't know the password of this guy. Let's see. Okay, I think I did enter the right password. Let's see if it brings up the SSMS. It hasn't complained about the password, so that is one good thing. It is working on it, looks like. So what I did is it is kind of stuck in the limbo. Hasn't opened SSMS for me. Let's see when it opens. So meanwhile it's loading. I have given this user, I have created this user. Now I can give some privileges. There are different type of privileges. What kind of privileges? Let's see. Some of the privileges are available here in the list of privileges. I'm going to just bring the list of privileges. These are the privileges, the access right or the privilege granted to the user. So some of the rights are all, execute only, or select only. So the more you give the permission, the more dangerous that user can become. If you just give only the select permission, then that user will only be able to run select queries. They will not be able to create anything. They might be able to create their own temporary tables on whatnot, but I think they might not be able to even create the hash temporary tables. Um, is the name of the database on which you want to give them the permission, so you can start all over from the table. Then you can, if you don't want to give the permission on the table, you can give the permission on the view, you can give the permission on the procedure, you can give the permission on sequence. Sequence is just like an auto number field in Microsoft Access. So what is sequence? 1 2 3 4 5, right? So that is the sequence. So sequence is not only just 1 2 3 4 5. Sequence could be 1001, 1002, 1003, depending upon where do you want to start the number, and it will automatically start incrementing that number from there. Username, on which username you want to give the permission, which user you want to give the permission. To all roles, all the roles are set to be privileged grouped together with the grant option. So let's say if I have an example of it somewhere. So first of all, the role has to exist, and then you will be able to give permission to that. So just an idea of what is that command would be. So grant privileges on object and which name. Now look at this one. I just did a magic actually. So are you looking at this? Because I'm just waiting for it. I actually logged in as user on this computer, and now I'm able to log in as another user in my SSMS. And how I was able to do it, I will just show you that. I will that's what I was trying out, excuse me. So if I go SSMS and I go as, I want to know, open the file location, where is that file is, it's buried under somewhere here, and I want to log in not as the normal user who is currently logged in, because if I see who I am logged in with, I can check that out. So if I'll go on command prompt, I can tell you that I'm logged in as a user. Under my users folder, there's a user called user. I'm not logged in as Kashan, but I don't want to log out as user because it can delete my or remove my session. So I don't want to, or I will get disconnected from you guys. So what I did, okay, maybe I have a trick here. So I went inside wherever this SSMS tool is installed. I right click on it and I say run as a different user. And when I run as a different user, it asks me what's the username and password to which you want to run it. And I think I cracked the password correctly. So once I did that, it took a little bit of time, but actually it's now showing me that I can definitely log in as this user. So if I'll connect this, cannot open the default database. Okay, so I was able to at least crack this far. So let me see if I have given permission to this guy already. So if I look at Kashan Khan, he has this server roles public, he has user mapping. I don't think so there is. Let's just say mapping. I'll just give him a little bit more permission out there because I haven't given him some permission. Let's give him some good level of permissions so that SQL Server does not complain. Grant and enabled. So instead of writing this command, I can give this permission. And as for every single thing like in SQL Server, you can have a new query window. So it is going to create some query for you in the background, but let's just apply. So create user this, and give him the permission on all of these databases. So now if I close it, let's leave it at that. I can close this screen out. Let's cancel this guy one more time. I think I haven't given him much permission. earlier. So application role, I don't want to create a new role or something, but I give a little bit more handy permissions than I have. So let's try one more time. Hopefully this time it will be a little faster. So shift, I press a shift key on my keyboard and say right click here and run as a different user. So I'm going to run it as a different user. And to be honest, you can run any application as a different user. And to be safe, I am not sure whether it requires my computer name and password. So I'll say connect and I'll cheat this computer name, which is a very gibberish computer name. I'll cheat that and say /Kashan. Let's see if it likes it this time and give me login access. I give a little bit more permissions this time to this user. But as you see, I can grant access or grant privileges to the user, and it is now loading up SSMS here as my other username. On the side note, okay, so now it is open. If I click connect, yay, hooray! So I am now logged in as Kashan, which is not the user that I use too much. But good thing that you will see now that under database, under Kimte, I can do same things depending upon what permissions that I give. Initially, that user was not even created. So if I would have logged out and logged as in Kashan Khan and launched SSMS, I'm sure it would not be allowing me to log in or would have restricted me to log in because this username was not created. This is the actual guy who is actually the installer. This guy user is actually the default guy who installed SSMS on this machine. He has a lot more schema to view. You see that. And then he has the privilege to add a user, which is a Windows user on this server. And when I created this user, I went on and give a little bit extra juicy permission here. So if I add this user, because he is a Windows-based user, this is the easiest way of authentication, the Windows-based authentication. When you, I was just reading yesterday that this Windows-based authentication is fading away. SQL-based mixed authentication is getting used now. And keep in mind, Microsoft Azure SQL, which is the cloud version of SQL Server, actually does not use Windows authentication. It uses SQL Server authentication. So I should have created this server with SQL-based authentication instead of Windows-based authentication. But anyways, we are far ahead in time now. But this is usually used to be on the on-premises server kind of permission. So if that computer exists on your local area network, this is the way you would have created it. So for your own personal learning, that's fine. But keep in mind when you go to any company and they use Microsoft Azure SQL, there will be a different authentication types of authentication. But nevertheless, once you are able to log in, you should be able to write the query. And setting it up is the one-time kind of a job which your administrator does. So he kind of know what permissions to give to which user. Coming back to the topic, now I'm logged in. So now I give a little bit more permission than I wanted to this user, but I just wanted to get away with the login related issue. So now I'm able to log in, and you can see I don't have guest account or any other accounts except SA, which is also disabled right now. So I have given this guy permissions, and I think if I have given more than extra permissions, I'm not able to see any tables. Okay, so I'm not able to see any tables. So the more I will play with the permissions, I'm not, this is just a very basic level permission that I think I have. I am not able to create a table, or I'm not able to see any procedure. So that is weird, but at least I'm able to log in. So it all depends upon this guy who has given me the permission. If he can grant me little bit more permissions, please. So if I'll say grant this user little bit more permissions. So make him the owner for now, membership owner, securable, I don't know, you can search all object of types, give him the access. Let's start with database objects. And there's a whole lot of things. So let me see if I can give him database level access. I want to give him some stored procedure access. I want to give him table access. I want to give him some view access. He can create some users if you want to. I don't want to show him all the users that work in the company. So if I click it, and if I create later on, create multiple users, he can see those users. But my main purpose is to show you that it is doing some good things behind the stuff for that guy which I am giving permissions. So Kimte, and yeah, for this database, you should be able to have the database owner, and he can, I can get, so I can click on grant. Behind the scenes, it is writing some coding for me. So everything that you are doing in SQL Server is actually giving authorization to the users in the different roles that you have created. So I'm not going to go and look at every one of them. And if I will have to explain, I can just have to open it, and then so that's a kind of an overkill for me for now, just to explain this topic. But let's see if I can just get away with the disconnect and reconnect back instead of reopening SSMS one more time. So let's see if I click database, Kimte object, tables. Here you go. So I'm able to see all the objects. So depending upon how much you give and how much you retreat on the permissions, but you have to be really careful as a database administrator to give certain permissions to the certain person, because you don't want to give them too much so that they will be able to delete the object, right? Or something like that. Let me see if I can be able to delete the object. This is not a object that I'm using at all. So let's see if I will. So now I have given some extra permission, which I haven't really played a calculated game on. I just was doing some random permissions. So I will need to make sure that even that disable should not come, or delete should not come on the right click menu of that person. So it depends upon how much permission I give, then it, or I should not be able to rename the object. Rename the object is equally disastrous, because even though object exists, but you change the name, it will not be able to give. So as you saw, I can grant permission. So everything that everything that I was showing you, you can do it here by typing it as well, right? And I'm on this website, but really doesn't matter where I go. Usually all the websites have similar kind of W3 school kind of cheat sheet on the left side and on the right side. But you can revoke permission for that person. So usually I go, if I know I can do it in SSMS, and I can play a calculated game of how much permission that I want to revoke, I need to revoke. So if I have given some extra permission to the user, no problem. I will go back and remove some checkboxes, and it will take the permission back. So if I'll say go ahead and go to the properties of this user and open a schema, I don't want to give him database owner permission. He should be only a database reader. So that should be okay. I will take out the database ownership permission. So if I'll click OK, I think it is just showing me it will happen after the fact when you click it. And same thing with the membership. I don't want him to be. So I have to play around and tweak around what kind of permission that I want to get. And if I want to keep this as a script somewhere for the next time, if I'm adding this thing for another user or something like that, I will not be going into this dialog box. I can be able to automate this process. So which department do you belong to? Okay, you belong to this such and such department. I will give you some permissions, and I will just open up my script, click on execute, and it will give you that much level of permission. So first time done, and then you keep the script for each department or for each person or whatever, and then you just change the username with the new name you wanted to, the new username that is created in Active Directory, and then you'll just execute it and it will give the permission to it. So you don't have to babysit and go and open up this dialog box. So I'm going to close this user now. Although I have given this permission to this user, it's no use right now for me. I'm going back to the SQL server. So the topic for the grant and revoke user database type privileges is not available on W3 School. You might have to refer to the book, or it's available online. And I've practically shown it to you using the dialog box. But what kind of permissions that user can have? User can have full permissions, select permissions, or selected permission that you want to give. So if you want to just give him access to certain tables, you can give him access to the certain. These are the things that were not available in Microsoft Access. If you give somebody Microsoft Access database, he will have full authority on it, and he can delete things. There are ways for stopping the user to delete and do some do some accidental damage, intentionally or unintentionally. But SQL Server gives you a full set of security on that by not even showing those objects to you. So yesterday we were looking at, because this topic would have left in the limbo if I would not have covered. I'm on module 7 right now, looking at all the topics here. So you can create and drop views as well. Instead of, you can create and drop tables. Benefit of views. We just saw that you can create drive tables inside, or you can create, once done, it's a black box for you and you can use it. Similar to that, you have stored procedure with the same idea. You can have grant and revoke user database privileges. Understanding indexes. So I will go over this topic when I will come over. Not extraordinary crazy topic to go over right now, but keep in mind, and just in case if I forget, that the indexes, and I will actually look into it before I finish up the course, all the topics, which if I've missed out on anything in detail, but indexes are used for faster access of the data. So primary key index, which we know, or the foreign key index that we know, primary key index is more faster. And you now know by this point, after taking the data structure course, that if your primary key is a text-based value, why it would be difficult for SQL Server or any program per se to process that text, because text has to be matched apples to apples. And if we have a very big pattern or something like that we make as a primary key, that comparison has to happen. If it would be a number, it will be just a number. So we can, that's why they have given a something called sequence in SQL Server, in Oracle as well, that you can create sequence, you can create primary key. Primary key is a number based. Why it is a number based? Now you know the benefit of having a primary key as a number. Over here in this database, they are just using a primary key as a char or character value or something, but ideally it should have been something of numeric nature. So that's what it was all about. Now, coming to the stored procedure topic, we have covered some basic stored procedure, and then I have used the advanced stored procedure, moving the actual query or common table expression under the umbrella of stored procedure now. And when I also did explain that why it is imperative that you keep the last execute part of it under the comments at the bottom of the stored procedure, so you have an idea how you what is the output of it. So not going to save it, not going to save these. So security features we have looked at today. So security features, it includes the creation of the user. If the user is already created, then what kind of permissions you can apply to him. Let's look at a little bit more advanced topic on stored procedure. If I have time, I will go over creating indexes later on in the course, but at the moment it's not. Creating indexes is not an often job, and it's mostly a database administrator who does that. Just copying one of the syntax. There you go. I got it. Just keep it here. So remember, yesterday we were passing out the arguments. I'll just keep it a little bit because it's interfering with me. So we have a where clause, and we have a city, and then we have and clause, and we have another. So these are my parameter column, and these are my parameters. So I'm going to replace for temporarily. I'm just cheated a SQL server from SQL server. I just cheated this. I'll give you the link as well in a moment from where I got this. So I'm going to do city is null, or I should make it as city as null, or, and I'm going to explain this in a moment. City is equals to @ city. Yeah. Let's comment this out. Okay, so what I am doing here, basically, this is an optional parameter. What does this mean? And this is one thing I'm going to do. I'm just changing a few things here, and I'm going to explain it. Run it for me, and then I will explain this everything what has happened here. So now this procedure is compiled. So open up this sample run. I'm going to change it as no. Yeah. Okay. Let's see this. What is happening? Going back to my actual code, recompile it. and run it, and city is equals to, this was Cody. This was my actual sample run. So if I run this, this is showing me when the city is Cody, and I'm just revising it. When the city is Cody and rep ID is 05, what should happen? It is going to show me all the customers with the city in Cody and representative ID is 05. Now, my problem is I have a situation where I want everything for the representative number 5, but I want it for all the cities. But the problem here is, if I'll say null, that run it for me for all the cities, and if I execute this, problem is I will not get any result. Even though I said I'm not providing this parameter, I just, please can you give me for 05. So what are my choices? What the problem with this would be is that I will be creating another stored procedure for a combination of the variables. So when I will say I don't want to provide the city and I just want to provide the rep ID, that will be one stored procedure. Then when I will say no, I want to provide a city but I don't want to provide the representative ID, then I will be creating another stored procedure, right? And the procedure where I want to provide both city and the representative ID, I will be creating another procedure, which I did already. And then if I don't want to provide the city and I don't want to provide the representative ID, then I will be creating another stored procedure. So how many stored procedure in total I will be making? 4 of them. Well, that's not the good solution, that for one slight change I will create another procedure. For one parameter I will create another stored procedure. For one parameter that I don't want to see the value, I want to create another procedure. So now I don't want to be doing that. What we have the solution, it is called and I'm going to paste this here. Okay, close this. How can I use optional parameter in transact SQL in this stored procedure? So this is the sample stored procedure. A gentleman was trying to create the optional stored procedure. So what are the changes that somebody recommended? Somebody recommended that use it this way. So the variable name is null, or the first name, which is the column name, is given as a first name. And what else you need to make change? Declare this variable as a null on the top, because usually when I created this procedure, I did not have a null. So what I did is I cheated this column. Just give me a sec. I cheated this column. See this? And I pasted it in my SSMS. And I kind of change it to my liking. My monitor is behaving. Give me a moment. Just giving me some trouble. My monitor is giving me some trouble, so I'm going to shift my sharing to another screen. Give me a sec. So now you're going to see my screen. Now, here in this one, what is actually happening? It is being recommended that you write it like this. Somebody is recommended like this. We will see why what is happening here. Okay, so we will see what is happening here. And the changes I had to do is that I had to add this, instead of just saying first name or city is equals to @city, I had to add some extra brackets, and I had to do this. So I don't memorize this. I just copied this, right, and pasted it in my SSMS. I'm going to explain this, what is going to be happening here. And the other thing I did is I added a null here. So let's say if I go back here and go to SSMS here. So this whole thing is now replaced. Can be, if I need an optional parameter, I can change it back to this way that was shown, and I copied and pasted from there. Other thing that I did is that when I'm working on it, I said start with the null value. Okay, so we will be seeing what this initial part is doing, but we will be first seeing what is happening here. So I'm going to uncomment this out and get rid of this, my original one. I always now like to make my stored procedure with optional parameters. And with optional parameters, now if I'll compile this program, execute it, and now let's say if I want to provide a city, doesn't really matter. SQL Server is not picky on that. Oracle is. So now it did work. And it is not using this syntax. It is actually using which syntax? This syntax. So now if I don't provide it, it's not going to show me empty table, because remember, at one point it did show me the empty table when 5 minutes ago, when I was not providing the city, I provided null. But this time when I will provide null, it will show me actually all, so everything for the representative ID 05 and all the cities, not just Cody. So now if I run this, let me see if I compiled it already or not. It is compiled just for, and then when I run it, it is now showing me representative ID 05, 05, and the city Cody, and also Albuet and Powell. So that is very big achievement for me, that just by changing few things in the parameter, by changing this and by adding this line instead of this line, I have a little bit more power, that I have an optional parameter now available to me where I can pass this value. So what does this mean? If city is equals to city, if the city is provided, then do this. Okay, so if the city is provided, if city is name Cody is provided, if Cody is provided, then it will drop in this portion of the syntax. What does that mean? City is equals to city, which is this old syntax, very familiar, which we learned yesterday, passing as a parameter. But what happens here? When the city is null, when @city is null, basically this means in SQL way, null is equals to null, because the value of the city, when you don't provide the value of the city, you provide a null. Basically what you're passing it, what you're passing, null, right? And when the null will come, it will not end up in this area, it will end up in which area? In this area. And null is null, which is true. which by means bring everything and do which means null is equals to null or null is null. If I say in SQL way, I will say null is null. Yes, null is null. It is true condition, meaning bring everything. So here you have actually nullified the effect of the whole column and said that bring everything from this column. Because in SQL Server, if I say like this, select, just need your focus here, 1 is equals to 1. What will be returned? True. 1, 1, 1. If I say something like this, select, just to explain, select all from dbo.customer. How many rows are there? 13 rows. Everything is brought. Where, in mathematical terms, where 1 equals to 1. You know that this is always true. 1 is equals to 1, or 5 is equals to 5, or 10 is equals to 10. So when they are true, really doesn't matter to SQL because where 1 is equals to 1. So this condition, this is just a condition for it. Obviously, you are not matching a column with the column. You are just matching a number with a number. So basically, when you run it, you will still get 13 rows. But what's the point of having this where 1 is equals to 1? Nothing. It's just a true value, which is happening always true on each row. 1 is equals to 1, 1 is equals to 1, 1 is equals to 1, and every single row, this where clause has no meaning to it. But here, when I say city is equals to null, basically this is essentially what I'm saying is select. Oh, I should not have deleted it, but I'll just say Control C if I can type it. Yeah. Null is null. Let's see if it likes it or not. Where null is null. This is also true. So the value of the city will always be null throughout the number of rows it is going down. So you have actually played a game with SQL Server saying that where null is null, which is a true condition again, and it will return you 13 rows. So if you provide a value, it will end up in this area. If you don't provide the value, it will end up in this area, which is basically null is null, and null is null means return me everything. But here is the second condition that is restricting the records for this guy, which is 0, 5. So let's forget. It is going to pick up everything for the city column because you did not provide any city, but you did provide the representative ID. So it is the normal column for it. So I will play a game on this one as well. I'll just copy this, get rid of this now because I'm advanced a little bit in my select statement. And I'm going to copy this and paste it here. And I'll say, copy this, Control V, rep ID is null, or rep ID, which is the column name. I'm just going to shorthand here. And you want to provide Control V. So basically, if you provide both of them now, so let's start with, because now we have two variables and 4 cases where both are nulls, where where city is null and rep has a value, where rep is null and city has the value, and we have a best case scenario where we will have both city and the rep ID given to us, right? So that is the best case scenario. But if I'll say this and null is equals to null, you know that however many times I will type null is null and null is null, it is always be true and true. So when the condition is true, it will always going to be running for me and giving me or null is null, I should say. So it is giving me the results however many times is possible. But here in the optional parameter, every single time I want to make a parameter as an optional parameter, and I don't have to write 4 procedures now. I can just live with 2 procedures, with just 1 procedure doing all the 4 steps that I wanted to do. So let me just compile this. And I have compiled this procedure now. So now if I'll say I'm not going to provide anything, so I will going to create 4 sample runs for this one. So I'm not going to provide anything. It means both are nulls. This is null, city is null, and rep is null. So when it will run, it will bring up all the records. All the 13 records should be okay. I have a mistake here. I figured out is equals to null. I forgot to put this null. So I need to put this null, recompile it. And this is a small or big mistake. See how much of a difference it makes that if I forget to put this null, I need to remember this. So it is very picky. So you have to make sure that you are doing this. So I'm going to share the link of the procedure of this page that I gave you. Where is that? Yeah, here's that. So I remember we used to have 32 reports in our business. Somebody who coded it, they made 16 reports for English, 16 reports for French customers. We figured out that if we use optional parameter like this, we only have to create 4 reports, and those 4 reports can cover all the English and Frenches. All we need to just give optional parameter, whether you want to have French report or English report. You will say 1 for English, 0 or 2 for French. So you don't need that many reports. And then imagine it was a nightmare for us that if there is one slight change that I have to make in one of the report, I have to audit all the other reports, 16 reports for English and 16 reports for, and I will be spending all day just modifying just minor change in the report and making sure that all of those reports have that. Now at this stage, if it reduced down to 4 by just giving optional parameters, we have reduced down the 32 reports into just 4 reports and just giving them the optional parameter. Whether you want this or not. If you don't want this, bring all the records. If you want this, we'll just keep it. So that is the beauty of using the optional parameter. So now if I'll say null is equals to null, that's fine. Let's try our second case scenario. City is Cody, regardless of what is the rep is. So I'm going to keep adding this to my sample run. So I'll just this is my first case, which is null is equals to null. Just my sample run because I need to know what I'm doing, and I'll just keep commenting it. So, and the more cases that I put in my sample run, later on when I will open up this stored procedure, I will be able to quickly grab it what is happening here. So now if I run it for this guy, city is Cody, representative ID could be anyone, 05 and 15 as well as here. This is my second sample run. Copy this, paste it here. Third sample run. This would be null, and this would be the representative ID 05. So all the cities, but only the representative ID 05 going into my sample run. And I don't need to overkill my sample runs, but just letting you know there will be maximum, because there are 2 variables only, there will be four cases, so I'm okay. But if I would have 3 cases, I would have 12 and all blah blah blah. So I just need to make sure that I'm not overkilling the sample runs and putting all different cases here. But because I just have 2 cases, so I'm just putting only the 2. If you have 3, you can just put 2 or 3 as well, because you know what is actually happening once you have the idea of the sample run. And now the last case where you will be providing the city and actually the representative ID. So if you run this now, it is giving me the city, and that city is gone. So I'm gonna, along with this, I'm done. So I'll paste the sample run here. All the sample runs are there for me. I'm just a little slow on this, but now I have successfully created the stored procedure which can accept the optional parameter, and I have done all my sanity checks. So here is the page that I'm going to copy and paste it in the chat window. And there are so many other pages which can explain you how to use optional parameters. I have used this all the time for using optional parameters. So with one procedure, I'm able to hit 4 reports. 4 queries. Any questions on that? So we can go back to our procedure, the next procedure. Oh, how I will deal with the null. Okay, so that's a good one. So I have, because I have left to think, because null is only for the string. Let's see if it complains. Let me just put it here and cheat my code. So if he does not provide any having clause will not be working. So I will have to check this one out because this is a little complicated. Control V. So I'll just say where QP is null. So I am just thinking a little advanced about my problem. Oh, this is my column name. Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is my is null, or I'm just trying it out. I'm not guaranteeing anything here. I'm just saying that it should work. But this is happening in my having clause, not in the where clause. So that is one of the issue that I'm looking at. Ideally, I would like to have it broken down instead of where clause, go to the subquery and then put it in the where clause over there. But I want to try it out because this is one-time scenario that I'm also looking at. So I'm very cautious in typing here. I'm not making any mistake. Where QP is null or QP is, and I'm going to see this is my column name and this is done. So my issue is, so it will not work here in this scenario, but in the where clause it was working. So any other situation where I discussed, it will be, I have to rethink more here what to do in this kind of situation. But my main purpose was to show you that I'm going to look at the bigger picture, that when you pass the parameters, how you will be coping with the stored procedure in that scenario. And this is your stored procedure for that. So I'm not going to change anything in this procedure anyways, and nothing will going to be overwritten, because until I execute that, it will not run.